Well, she walked on the beach in a faraway dream that she thought. She wondered and wept about her lost ma and pa. Fly high.
Chris Nelder speaks of the political and technological solutions that people think will be able to replace our energy problems, and that the U.S. needs to develop a serious energy plan that includes saving our fossil fuels. He also talks about his desire to see community-based responses acting upon larger energy projects.
What do you think the danger is of making, Tony Hayward and BP and other oil companies the scapegoat, when in reality we kind of need to take a fresh look at our lifestyles?
Right. Well, that's a classic example of it right there. Let's find a scapegoat. Let's see who was at fault. Let's figure out which piece of technology failed, and then we'll hang somebody and we'll put somebody new in and we'll install a new piece of technology, and then we can go back to our dream. That's the kind of childish reaction to the situation that we're getting right now, because people still don't have that broader understanding of where they are in the big picture. So I've spent, I've focused a lot of my work in that area, trying to educate people about, look, this is where we are. Here's the numbers. It's not something that you can wish away with knee-jerk political reaction, or with a new piece of technology, or by hanging Tony Hayward. I mean, granted, they made a number of errors, and it looks like this spill was probably the result of sort of a long cascading series of failures. And there's blame to go around. It's not just BP's. There's probably some blame to be put on some of the other parties that were involved in the rig. I don't know, but perhaps Halliburton had a role, perhaps Transocean had a role, perhaps APC had a role, or some of these other companies. And certainly there seems to have been some culpability on the part of the MMS and on the part of the watchdogs. So this was a cascading series of failures, and sort of an environment that had developed of sort of lax overconfidence, I think, that resulted in this. But you can fix all of that, and you still don't have a solution to your energy problem. And that's what people need to understand. Even if we put it all back the way it was and prevented these kind of things circa April 19th, the day before the blowout, we would still had an intensely difficult and serious energy problem that we are in no way prepared to face. So people just need to get over the idea that there are political solutions, or that there are technological solutions to this problem, because there isn't. What we need to do is start getting serious about developing a real energy plan and doing things that really result in major oil savings over time. And I think we're gradually getting to the point where people are beginning to understand that. But we have a long way to go. We still have the oil and gas industry denying the reality of peak oil, and not really trying to become the energy providers of the future, just sort of clinging to their existing fossil fuel business instead of investing in clean tech. We have these sort of minuscule offerings from the government level in terms of what we're trying to invest in, and how we're trying to encourage energy transition. We need just so much more in terms of R&D money, in terms of putting in a high voltage national grid, and really developing these larger solutions, utility scale, renewable projects, and so on. So there's really just so much, and the clean tech community doesn't seem to understand, most of them, where they are in relation to the fossil fuels. I mean, they say, oh,
they're working independently.
Renewables, oh, we're just going to replace all this stuff with renewables, without having any concept that the scale and time to market issues are far more complex than they imagine.
Also, the reliance upon fossil fuels to instigate all this renewable energy is enormous.
We have no idea how to build solar panels and wind turbines and big high voltage grid without using fossil fuels to build it. So What I'm most concerned about is that when we finally wake up and realize that we really need to go big on investing in energy transition, we'll do so at a time when we have even less fossil fuels of which to build it, and it's even more expensive,
Right.
and we'll just continue to fall short.
Right.
And that'll have a lot of effects on our economy and on our social structure
Yeah.
that I don't think anybody wants to see. But until we recognize that risk, I don't think we're going to move fast enough here. And it's in our history that we don't anticipate and respond to
Right.
distant threats very well. We usually wait until it's right on our doorstep before we do anything. What I really want to see, I think, are community-based responses now, not just individuals doing these small things, but larger projects at the community level.
Right.
I want to see communities really strongly incentivizing local distributed power generation. I would like to see communities get to the point where they can micro-island from the main grid when the grid goes down and have their own backup supply
What does that mean,
distributed.
micro-island?
You know, again, just being able to disconnect from the main grid and keep your own little local grid up, which means you've got to have some backup, some local backup, whether it's spinning, you know, some sort of spinning reserve, or lots of batteries, or what have you. I mean, we could do it with vehicle-to-grid technology. If you had enough hybrids plugged in at home, that could keep your grid up for a day or two until the main grid comes back, or what have you. So I just think we need community-based responses. We need to plow up a lot of useless decorative lawn, whether it's in the park or in front of the bank or in front of your house, and plant food.
Yeah.
And we need to relocalize the manufacture of everything that we possibly can, you know, rather than buying everything from Asia. You know, part of the problem with globalization, or part of the reason globalization really happened, and we offshored all this stuff, is because fuel is so cheap. You know, the shipping costs from here to China and back, if you want to take ore from the U.S. and send it to China and turn it into steel and then ship it back here, the shipping cost was so negligible. It was really more about the labor and so on. Well, that's all being inverted now. So the shipping cost is now becoming really significant, and we need to eliminate that by doing more manufacturing at home. So I would like to see a lot more of that kind of thing. I'd like to see light rail happen in a big way. As a transitional strategy, communities could certainly move to little bus regimes. So I don't think we can wait around for the federal government. I think that's abundantly clear. And we can't really wait around for state government either, because they're all broke. You know, they're cutting back on police and fire, and they're limiting bus service, and they're cutting back on train routes right now because they don't have the budget.
Right.
So we need to turn that all around. How we do it is really the question, and I think we need millions of minds working on this problem. We have to approach it all with an incredible sense of urgency, and we need to be on a war footing with this stuff. All hands on deck, open up every shuttered factory and start churning this stuff out. You know, I don't care if we wind up with little electric vehicles that have all the appeal of a World War I Jeep. If it gets you from point A to point B, and you can turn out millions of them and get these other vehicles off the road, and you can simultaneously build up your renewably generated electricity to run them on, which in itself is a very difficult problem, because otherwise you just wind up putting more demand on coal and natural gas.
Right.
That's what we have to do in a big way.